I will attempt to explain all the different types of scriptures in Hinduism. And Hinduism does not have one, you can say just one main text like the Bible in Christianity or the Quran in Islam. There's a lot of different texts. Um, and what I'm going to try to do is just kind of like diagram, the main ones, how it all kind of fits together. And yeah, so let's get started. There's basically there's many texts, but I would have to say that the two main texts in Hinduism are the Vedas and the Puranic texts. Puranic texts. And I'm gonna just concentrate on the Vedas for now because the Vedas are really they're the main ones. This is if you had to pick like the Bible or what would be like the Bible of Hindu or the Quran, it would be the Vedas. This is the main primary source of wisdom and knowledge, and it's often considered to be the highest written authority in Hindu texts. So it's kind of like, I like to think of it as um, the Constitution. Really, it's like our Constitution. This is the rule of law is another way to think of it, and the Puranic texts. Um, the Puranic texts have all other stories, other ways of explaining these important principles, but the Vedas are really um, where you get that primary source, sort of the main rules of Hinduism, and the main principles. And the way the Vedas work is there are four main Vedas. So we have the Vedas, and the Vedas are divided into four main Vedas. We have the Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. And each of these Vedas is also sort of divided into two parts. The beginning of these Vedas usually has information on the rituals or the rites or the ceremonies that you are supposed to convey. So they're more like how do you practice. So this has, you could say, the rituals, all the ceremonies, when to pray, how to pray, what to use, all that information. So all the things you would need for work, you could say. And the second half, near the end of the Veda, are something called Upanishads. And this is what's really often referred to in Hinduism. You'll always hear these terms Vedas, Upanishads, and I remember for the longest time being confused, what is what how does it all connect? And this is kind of like this is the diagram of kind of seeing, okay, so this is how it works. There's Vedas and there's four main Vedas, and each Veda is divided into rituals and Upanishads. And Upanishads are the opposite part of the rituals. They're more the philosophy behind Hinduism. The more, in my personal opinion, the way more interesting aspect of why do we do this, um, less on the work aspect and more on the knowledge aspect. Um, and to be a very devout Hindu, you should technically do both. You should have a solid foundation, solid knowledge of these of how to live life, but you should also be devoted and do this sort of work and show your devotion towards God. And let's just clarify that it's not just the Rig Veda that is that has these rituals in Upanishad. Let me just get rid of that. Not too much space here, but even this one, oh, whoops, 1 second. Even the Sama is divided into rituals, and then Upanishads. Here we see the same rituals, Upanishads. and again, rituals, Upanishads. So when people say, oh, this text is from the Upanishads, these Upanishads can be from any one of these four Vedas. So you would have to really, if you really wanted to get more detail, you would say, oh, okay, the Upanishad that you're mentioning, which Veda is this from? And they would say, oh, the Rig Veda, and then you'd be like, okay, now I know where to look that up or where to read it. So that's sort of, in my personal opinion, you need to like get an idea of just how it all fits, because it's not that as conducive. So this is how the Vedas work, and the way Puranic texts work. Puranic texts, these are just the other texts, other sort of, mainly these are stories that we'll see. And the most common one, I think the most common one that people have heard of is the Bhagavad Gita. This is another, the Mahabharata. Sorry, let's just stick with this. The Bhagavad Gita, or also known as just the Gita itself. And there's a lot of other ways, but in this video I just want to focus more on the Vedas. Maybe in another video I'll stress what the Puranic texts are. But again, this is the highest written authority, and this is how it's divided into these aspects. And most Hindus, at least in this website, I'm going to focus more on the Upanishads, because I personally find that more fascinating and a better way to gain the knowledge aspect. If you are interested in the rituals, you should definitely feel free to read these Vedas, but I want to focus more on the Upanishads. So just to give a little more background on the Upanishads, we don't know how many were ever created in total, but from what our knowledge is, we have preserved 108. So 108 have been preserved. There might have been more that were written down. We're not too sure what's going on with that, but from our knowledge, 108 have been preserved. We don't know who wrote them. We know that they were written by saints, so they were obviously written by saints or followers of Hinduism, but we don't know exactly. We can't say like, oh, this Upanishad was written by this person. That is not possible. But an important point of the Upanishad is that it was written by saints, and these saints sort of wrote their, I'm going to put it in quotes just to be sure. It's not completely this way, but it's sort of their revelations. And this is important because it was not the reason I stress this point, because this means it was not structured. It's not like, okay, there's 108 Upanishads, and when you read the first 10, you'll learn about this important principle, and when you read the next 10, you'll learn about honesty, and the next 10 after that, you'll learn about morality. It's not that way. It's just actually, in a way, it's a little more just random. It's a bunch of saints with they just kind of wrote down their revelations or their thoughts. That's an important point to keep in mind, because if it's not structured and it's written by different saints with their revelation, it could lead to possible inconsistencies that you might see in one Upanishad, but there's a slight inconsistency in another. And so this is not composed the full truth, or you can't just say, oh, I'm going to go to the Upanishads for the entire truth, because again, it is just these revelations written by saints. And last thing I just want to say is that there are 108 that have been preserved, but really there's 10 main ones, or the 10 principal Upanishads that most people focus on. The 10 principal Upanishads, which are the ones I'm going to cover, because it would be very lengthy, and honestly, a lot of this stuff is repeated. So most people will go to the 10 principal Upanishads for when they are seeking their knowledge. So I think I've included everything. Just one last thing before I leave is Upanishad, if anyone is curious, means sitting down near, which basically kind of refers to this idea of a good student, a good disciple who is sitting down near his guru, A guru is a teacher, so I'll just spell it here, Guru. This is another very popular concept in Hinduism, that you'll see a disciple and then the guru, and the guru is usually the one who will recite these Upanishads to their students so that the students are able to learn. And Upanishads highly stresses this concept. I mean, the name itself is stressing this concept that the gurus, you need to sit down near the gurus. You need to respect them because they are sort of your source of knowledge. And another term is rishi, and rishi means one who knows the Upanishads and just talks about them. So it can also be a very similar word to guru, but rishi is more like anyone who just understands it, versus guru is much more of a teacher. So just to recap, we have the two main texts, the Vedas and the Puranic text. I focused more on the Vedas in this video because Vedas are considered the highest written authority. It's divided into four main Vedas, which are each divided into rituals and the Upanishads. Rituals meaning more of the practical, like what exactly you need to do, versus knowledge is more philosophical aspects of it. And the Upanishads, I will be covering the 10 principal ones in the upcoming videos, and you should definitely check it out.